The situation on the open arms migrant rescue vessel is almost unsustainable, while the EU is yet to comment. The Jamaican Prime Minister looks to take on overcharging primary schools. And at least 10 people die in a tanker explosion in Uganda. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South. I am Doris Polo. The Open Arms migrant rescue vessel has said that the situation on board is unsustainable and that it needs immediate access to a safe port. 107 migrants are still on board the vessel after unaccompanied children were allowed to disembark. They have been waiting at sea near the Italian island of Lampedusa for 18 days as right-wing Italian Interior Minister Matteo Salvini ordered officials not to let them off the boat. Meanwhile, the head of the mission for Open Arms says traveling to a Spanish port to disembark those on board is not an option. The NGO has suggested allowing the migrants to disembark in Italy and then being flown to Spain as an alternative.
No, we cannot go to Spain because the situation on board will not permit us. This has already been documented. We are just a safe port. We arrived here as soon as we could. There's an emergency on board and the authorities have to respect international obligations and maritime obligations. First of all, they need to respect people's lives. The emergency care team has already detailed and documented and requested the immediate evacuation of these people, something which has not been done.
Our correspondent in Andalusia, Sergio Rodrigo, has the latest.
The situation is unsustainable on board the Open Arms humanitarian vessel, with the boat having been blocked by European states for nearly 20 days. Just days ago, it set sail for the Italian island of Lampedusa, but the Italian government didn't allow the people on board to disembark. There are currently over 100 people on board. The Spanish government offered the furthest possible Mediterranean port, Algeciras, but more recently offered the port of Palma in Mallorca. The NGO has said that after nearly 20 days at sea, travelling for 950 nautical miles is almost impossible. The situation on board is very difficult, with crises of anxiety and fights breaking out. Some of those on board have jumped into the sea to try and reach the Italian coast. Given the gravity of the situation, Open Arms has asked for access to the closest safe port, in this case, Lampedusa. Those on board would then be transported to the 6 European countries that have offered to take in the migrants and are responsible for the transport. Those on board have been waiting for an answer for almost 20 days. The rejection of states like Italy and Spain continues to generate a crisis within the European Union, which is yet to make a statement on the matter.
The Syrian army has taken control of the western part of Idlib province after flushing out terrorists belonging to the Al-Nusra Front of the city of Khan Sheikhoun. Our correspondent in Damascus, Hisham Wanous, has the details.
The Syrian army took on terrorists from the Al-Nusra Front on Sunday, which had embedded itself in the city, Khan Sheikhoun. The army managed to take control of the western part of the Idlib province after Syrian and Russian fighter jets, along with artillery from the Syrian Arab Army, bombarded terrorist positions, managing to destroy their refugees and fortifications and clearing access to the city. Afterwards, Syrian troops took position themselves on the international highway, connecting Damascus with Aleppo and Hamad. The operation forced a number of extremists to flee towards Marat and Numan. This happened after a ceasefire was established on August 2nd in Kazakhstan. The ceasefire was continuously violated by the terrorists, and as such, the Syrian army renewed its self-military operation to liberate Idlib. Turkey had sent a military convoy onto Syrian soil with Khan Sheikhoun as its destination. However, it was bombed the Syrian Air Force, causing the death of 3 Turkish soldiers and injuring 12 more. Turkey subsequently accused Syria of violating the agreements between Turkey and Russia on Syria. Meanwhile, Syria said that Turkish action wouldn't change its determination to continue pursuing terrorists.
That was Hisham Wanous with that report. In other news, the Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif spoke on Meeting with his Finnish counterpart in Helsinki to address the departure of the Iranian oil tanker seized off the coast of Gibraltar and the state of the 2015 nuclear deal. Zarif reiterated Iran's position that the seizure of the Iranian supertanker, formerly known as Grace 1, was illegal, adding that he hopes the vessel's departure will lead to a de-escalation of tensions. The vessel left Gibraltar after local authorities rejected the United States' latest request not to release it.
We always held that the seizure of Grace 1, now Adrian Darya tanker, was illegal, was not based on any law, that Iranian oil is not sanctioned by any entity and Iran is not subjected to European decisions, and Europe does not seek even to impose its decisions on non-EU members. So there was no grounds for taking that ship by Gibraltar authorities and by the United Kingdom. We are happy that this ordeal has ended, and I hope that this will lead to less escalation.
Now, addressing the 2015 nuclear deal, the foreign minister questioned how the United States can return to the negotiation table after unilaterally reneging on its commitments to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action.
Reached that good deal, and the United States withdrew from that good deal. So any mediation should be how they can come back to the negotiating table that they left. How can they come back to the commitments that they made? How can they come back to a Security Council resolution that they sponsored? Not just voted on, but sponsored.
For his part, the Finnish Foreign Minister Pekka Haavisto said Europe is doing its best to ensure that the nuclear deal has a future. He said his country is looking at joining the INSTEX mechanism designed to evade US sanctions on trade with Iran.
Regarding the role of Europe supporting the GCPOA in these difficult times, I think we are trying to do our best, of course, on the European side. As I said, it's the group of the E3 countries that have been very crucial on this issue. We are also trying to look different kind of financing mechanism, including the proposed INSTEX mechanism, and Finland is looking it in a positive light. We have not made decisions yet here, but we have been looking the possibility of joining the INSTEX mechanism.
We'll take a short break now, and we'll have details on Bolivia fires when we come back. Welcome back. Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness has put primary schools on notice, warning that no child should be denied access to an education due to fees being charged by some of these schools. An increasing number of primary schools have begun to charge fees which some parents are unable to afford. Government's support to schools has increased dramatically since the introduction of the no tuition policy.
I'm putting the primary schools on notice that there are many parents, and I'm not now speaking as Prime Minister, I'm speaking now as a Member of Parliament. I'm seeing an increased number of requests for assistance to pay for registration packages. And there is a sense that the more expensive the school is, the more exclusive it is. And the better the performance is going to be. And every parent wants the best for their child, so they're going to find the money. Now, I'm not saying that the parents must not contribute, but sometimes we miss the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is to make sure that no child, regardless of the income status of their household, is in any way deprived.
In other news, the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, is warning of what it describes as the complex situation of dengue in Latin America and the Caribbean. It says the region is currently experiencing a new epidemic cycle of the disease with a notable increase in cases. The climate and the mosquitoes' capacity to adapt are among those factors that may have caused the increase. PAHO says from January to July of this year, more than 2 million people contracted the disease and 723 died. The number of cases so far this year exceeds the total number of cases in the past 2 years. Shifting gears now, the authorities in Bolivia have ordered a state of emergency in Robore in the province of Santa Cruz after a forest fire spread, which has already destroyed 470,000 hectares. According to local officials, the fires were caused by a drought and high temperatures. They also confirmed there are no victims. 400 firefighters have been working since Saturday to put out the flames. President Evo Morales has suspended all his activities and traveled to Santa Cruz. Trucks and helicopters were sent to the area, and food and water are being delivered to the affected communities.
It will be difficult to stop these fires. We want to be honest with the people. All the work is being done by soldiers and policemen. 400 soldiers are on their way to the area and are joining 200 others from the armed forces.
Our correspondent Freddy Morales has more from La Paz.
President Evo Morales has been flying over the Chiquitania zone, which is a vast region of the Santa Cruz province. In a week, over 400,000 hectares of tropical land has been burned, according to official reports. After flying over the zone, President Morales began to deliver humanitarian aid to the families who've been affected by the fires. And the Minister of Defense, Javier Eduardo Zavaleta, has announced that an investigation is underway to evaluate the losses. According to President Morales, this is a very difficult situation. A total of 300 fires have reached all the way to Uruguay and the border with Brazil and Paraguay. The disastrous situation has even affected the political field, for the opposition has postponed a strike that had been announced. The authorities in Bolivia have ordered a state of emergency in Robore, in the province of Santa Cruz, after the forest fire spread and has already destroyed 470,000 hectares.
That was Freddy Morales with that report. Argentina has appointed a new finance minister after Nicolas Duhovne resigned in a reshuffle on Saturday. Hernan Lacunza takes over with the Argentinian economy in turmoil following President Mauricio Macri's defeat in the primary elections a week ago. The peso and Argentinian stocks plunged last week. The president cut VAT and other taxes in a bid to win back voters, but the measures have cast doubt over Argentina's deal with the IMF. And consumers say they have had no effect on prices. Our correspondent Sabrina Roth has more from Buenos Aires.
On Monday morning, President Macri has been meeting with the new economy minister Hernan Lacunza, as well as his cabinet chief and other top economic officials. After a week, which the president said there would be no reshuffle in his cabinet, Nicolas Duhovne resigned as economy minister at the weekend. He was replaced by Lacunza, who had been in charge of economic affairs in the Buenos Aires regional government. Although it had been a week of crisis for the economy, Lacunza was actually on holiday through all this. An official plane was sent to Patagonia to fetch him so that he could be sworn in. Lacunza leaves the finances of Buenos Aires province in a perilous state, with a big increase in its debt and interest payments 99% higher than the year before. And with unemployment higher than the national average, Lacunza now faces the task of trying to ensure that the IMF visit scheduled for this week goes ahead. The government has failed to reach almost all its targets agreed with the IMF. Another payment of $5.4 billion is due in September, and we'll see whether that happens or not. Monday is a holiday in Argentina, so the markets are closed, but bonds fell on foreign markets and Argentina's country risk went up again. So we'll see what happens after this meeting and when the markets reopen on Tuesday.
Our correspondent Sabrina Roth brought that report. Brazil has 88 dams of the same design as those that collapsed in 2015 and at the beginning of this year. One of them is in Barão de Cocais, where the local community fears a similar disaster to those in Mariana and Brumadinho. Here is the fourth report in our series, Minas Gerais, Mining Conflicts in Brazil.
The dam disasters in Mariana in 2015 and in Brumadinho in January have two important things in common. Both dams were owned by the Vale Mining Company, and both use the same construction method. Known as upstream tailings dams, these use the mine waste itself to lift up the mud. They're the cheapest kind, but also the least safe. After the accidents, they were banned in Brazil, but there are still 88 dams of this kind in the country, and one of them, also owned by Vale, has people worried in the town of Barão de Cocais, also Minas Gerais.
This problem with the dam has many of us very concerned, because we saw what happened in Brumadinho, and so we are on permanent alert.
There are orange lines like this throughout the town, and signposts warn of another possible collapse.
This dam has the same problems, and I'm not sure they're doing anything to fix it.
It's all because of the dam, which could burst anytime. We really don't know if it will or not.
About 500 people in the communities closest to the dam were moved out in February, when the siren warned that the risk had increased. The village of Socorro, just a few meters from the dam, has become a ghost town.
I was 15 when they began to build the dam, so Vale has been here for 20 years or so. It was beautiful here before, but Vale never did anything for us. They never brought jobs, as we were promised.
This is the dam that serves the Gongo Soco mine. It's been rated at level 3 on the scale of risk, the highest level. So how much longer will it be before there's a repeat of what happened at Mariana and Brumadinho?
André Vieira, Sebastian Soto, Telesur, Brasil.
Still to come, a Tanzanian court postpones the trial of a top investigative journalist. Don't go away. Welcome back. At least 10 people have been killed and dozens more injured in western Uganda after a fuel tanker exploded. This after the driver lost control of the vehicle and rammed into 3 cars. The fire from the tanker sparked 3 smaller explosions with nearby vehicles, and several small shops at the scene also caught fire. According to officials, 9 bodies were retrieved from the scene and another was still trapped beneath the truck.
Lost control from Bushenyi side as it was heading to Kasese side. Lost control, knocked 2 vehicles which were parked on the side of the road, overturned, and immediately fire started.
An investigator has told a Khartoum court that former Sudan President Omar al-Bashir admitted to receiving $90 million in cash from Saudi royals. The police brigadier said at the opening of the trial that Bashir told him that the latest payment was delivered by Mohammed bin Salman's envoys. Al-Bashir is accused of possessing foreign currency, corruption, and receiving gifts illegally. In June, prosecutors said a large sum of foreign currency had been found in grain sacks at his home. He was ousted in April after months of protests brought an end to his nearly 30 years in power. The trial comes as Sudan's military and protest leaders begin to implement a deal that is meant to pave the way for a civilian government.
The court has heard the testimony of 2 witnesses. The discussion was held by the prosecutor and the defense. We asked a lot of questions to the investigator. The prosecution will continue until next week. Then the defense will start after.
A court in Tanzania has postponed a hearing against a top investigative journalist after the prosecution asked for more time to continue its investigation. Eric Garner is facing charges of money laundering, tax evasion and involvement in organized crime. The journalist has not yet been asked to enter a plea, and the charges are considered too serious for him to be granted bail. Garner was arrested on July 29th and has been in custody since then.
We are still asking the authorities to transfer this case to the High Court, as the Kisutu Resident Court has no mandate to listen to such cases involving economic crimes. We will keep insisting to make sure they finish collecting evidence in time. Other measures should include finding means of getting a bail to our client, but so far it has been very difficult to get bail to our clients.
We move to the U.S., where the family of Eric Garner say they are relieved that the officer who killed him has been fired from the New York Police Department. 47-year-old Garner died after being put in a chokehold by a white police officer in 2014 in one of many incidents in which a black man was killed by U.S. law enforcement. A recent study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences found that American or African Americans are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by police than white people. Garner's daughter, Emerald Snipes Garner, says the cop, Daniel Pantaleo, is a murderer.
This is the shirt that I wore about 2 weeks ago while we were standing up here. Officer Pantaleo, well, now I can say Daniel Pantaleo, is a murderer, and that's just how I feel. I wear my emotions on my sleeve, and now I wear it on my chest. I feel that he is a murderer. I feel that he could have gotten off of Eric Garner. I feel that he made a choice, and everybody has a choice.
Staying in the U.S., over 50 water protectors have lobbied in the state of Minnesota against a planned gas pipeline to be constructed between the U.S. and Canada. The activists protested outside the offices of Canadian energy multinational Enbridge. They say the planned Line 3 pipeline threatens access to clean water, the climate, and protected indigenous rights. There are currently 3 pending lawsuits against the pipeline.
And they're going to say things like, oh, you drove your cars here, you all depend on this oil just like we do. That's the economy that we are entrenched in. We have the solutions for something else. We've had them for a long time. Why don't they subsidize renewable energy like they subsidize the oil industry?
Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen says United States President Donald Trump's remarks about Greenland are absurd. The U.S. president caused international consternation by suggesting that Washington buy Greenland for supposed strategic reasons. Frederiksen said she hopes the statement was not something that Trump seriously meant.
It's a large real estate deal. A lot of things.
Our correspondent in Washington, D.C., Alina Duarte, has more.
Donald Trump confirmed his interest in buying Greenland on Sunday and said it's something that had been talked about. Addressing journalists, he declared that the concept came up and that strategically the U.S. would be interested and will speak with Denmark. Journalists questioned if Trump would exchange the U.S. territory for Greenland in the 21st century. And he responded saying you can do a lot of things in the real estate business. He said strategically, it would be great for the United States, adding that Denmark would save almost $700 million annually. However, the Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said the autonomous territory is not available, that it's not for sale, and that it isn't Danish, rather Greenlandic. She also said that she hoped the remarks were made in jest, as she labeled the idea absurd. Now, the U.S. does have a military base in the north of Greenland and has in the past tried to buy the island. The most recent attempt was in 1946 with Harry Truman in the White House. Trump's diary suggests a visit to Denmark on the 12th and 13th of September, and the dates have been confirmed by the Danish royal household and the office of the Prime Minister. The visit is now cast in doubt. However, as Trump says, he had considered traveling to the Nordic country, but that it wasn't certain.
That was Alina Duarte with that report, bringing us to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Doris Polo. Thank you so much for watching.